We were told the line of succession was an immovable mountain, first King Charles, then Prince William, followed by the young Prince George. It was a narrative of bloodlines and birthrights, neat, orderly, and predictable. But deep within the labyrinthine corridors of Buckingham Palace, on a night when the London fog pressed heavily against the ancient stone walls, a secret was unearthed that would shatter those expectations forever. This was not a secret born of scandal or malice, but a final powerful message from the late Queen Elizabeth II, a woman who had spent 70 years observing the shifting tides of her kingdom. For years, Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, had carried this weight alone. Known as the steady anchor of the family, the one who never chased the spotlight, and always put duty above all else. Anne was the only person her mother trusted with this final explosive wish. It was a letter written in the Queen's own hand, tucked away from the prying eyes of courtiers and the relentless flashbulbs of the press, waiting for the exact moment when the monarchy would need it most. The palace was eerily quiet on the night Princess Anne decided the time for silence had ended. Behind the thick mahogany doors of a private sitting room, surrounded by the watchful eyes of ancestral portraits, she called for a meeting that would redefine the House of Windsor. There were no advisors present, no secretaries to take notes, and no cameras to record the tension. It was just King Charles and Prince William. The air in the room felt heavy, charged with the electricity of a coming storm. Anne did not begin with a grand speech. She simply reached into a leather folder and produced a letter, its edges softened from the many times she had held it in private. As she placed it on the table, the ticking of the mantel clock seemed to grow deafening. King Charles was the first to pick it up, his hands trembling slightly as he recognized his mother's neat, careful script. William leaned in, his brow furrowed, reading the words once, then twice, as if trying to find a hidden meaning that wasn't there. But the message was crystal clear. The Queen had not spent her final pages discussing the men who would follow her. Instead, she had named a woman she believed was the true key to the monarchy's survival: Catherine, the Princess of Wales. The Queen's letter was a profound departure from centuries of royal protocol. She wrote with a startling clarity, expressing her belief that the survival of the crown did not rest solely on the shoulders of a king, but on the heart of a woman the people had already chosen to love. She saw in Catherine a rare quality, a trust that had been earned through years of quiet service, rather than simply inherited through a title. At first, the revelation was met with a wall of resistance. King Charles, a man who had waited his entire life to ascend the throne according to the laws of succession, found the suggestion nearly impossible to process. "This isn't how it's done," he whispered, his voice breaking the heavy silence of the room. He looked tired, the weight of the crown he had so recently received suddenly feeling like an unbearable burden. William, too, was stunned into a cold, hard silence. He stared at the letter, his fists clenching in his lap, feeling a complex mixture of pride for his wife and a terrifying sense of inadequacy for himself. He had been raised to be the future, but his grandmother had looked past him to the woman standing by his side. Anne did not argue with them. She knew that her mother's wisdom was not something to be debated, but something to be understood. She reminded them that the world was changing at a pace the palace could barely keep up with, and that tradition alone would no longer be enough to hold the nation together. Catherine was different. She didn't just fit into the system, she made people believe in the system again. Across the palace that same night, Catherine sat by a window in her own quarters, completely unaware that the course of her life was being rewritten. She had just finished the mundane, beautiful task of tucking her 3 children into bed. As she watched the fog swirl around the iron gates of the palace, she felt a strange restlessness, a sense that the air was shifting, though she couldn't have imagined that she was being called into history, not as a supporter, but as the primary architect of the future. She had never chased power or sought the crown. She had only ever tried to do the job properly with a smile and a fierce protection of her family. And that the Queen believed was exactly what the monarchy needed to survive the coming century. The following morning, Buckingham Palace felt fundamentally changed. The light that spilled across London was grey and heavy, matching the mood inside the secret meetings that continued behind closed doors. Anne remained the general of this mission, standing firm against the shock and anger that rippled through the senior royals and their most trusted circle of advisers. King Charles struggled to reconcile his mother's wish with the laws he was sworn to uphold, at one point slamming his hand on the table in a rare display of raw emotion, calling the idea madness. But Anne held his stare calm and immovable, reminding him that their mother was never confused, she was certain. William's voice, when he finally spoke, was low and raw, with a vulnerability he rarely showed the public. He asked what would happen to everything he was raised to be only for Anne to soften her expression and tell him that he was still vital, but that the monarchy had to evolve or be left behind. Deep down, William knew she was right. He had watched Catherine face storms that would have broken others, and he had seen the way the public looked at her not as a distant figurehead, but as one of their own. As the days turned into weeks, the world went on as if nothing had changed. But inside the palace, a quiet storm was gathering strength. Catherine continued her duties, visiting hospitals and fighting for mental health causes. Her every kind word and handshake stitching her tighter into the fabric of the future the Queen had envisioned. Meanwhile, the pressure on the men of the family grew. Rumors began to leak to the tabloids about secret meetings and royal unrest, though the true nature of the Queen's letter remained a closely guarded secret. The nation was still mourning the loss of Elizabeth II, and while King Charles III wore the crown, many felt it didn't fit him with the same effortless grace. He was a man of passions and opinions, a stark contrast to the steady, silent symbol his mother had been. The scars of his past, from his messy divorce to his long road with Camilla, remained vivid in the public imagination. William, too, felt the ground shaking beneath him. He looked at his children and wondered if the future he was preparing them for would even exist by the time they were grown. The tide of public opinion was turning. Polls showed a growing number of young people questioning the relevance of the monarchy, and calls to break ties with the crown were growing louder in the Commonwealth. The family knew they couldn't survive on tradition alone. They needed someone real, someone the people could believe in. They needed Catherine. Long before the world noticed the cracks in the foundation, Queen Elizabeth had seen them coming. She had made her choice without fanfare, trusting that those who truly loved the institution would eventually follow her lead. She had seen the future, and it had Catherine's face not because of blood, but because of hope. This revelation eventually began to trickle out to the staff, whispered by palace maids who had overheard the tense conversations in the drawing rooms. The debate soon reached the public, sparking a fierce divide. Some argued that bypassing the rightful heir was a violation of the very principles the monarchy stood for, while others believed the Queen's wisdom was the only thing that could save the House of Windsor from obsolescence. As the public began to dig deeper into Catherine's life, they found a story that was remarkably different from the royals who had come before her. Catherine Elizabeth Middleton was born on January 9, 1982, not in a castle, but at the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading. Her family was comfortable but grounded in the values of hard work and humility. Her father, Michael, was a flight dispatcher, and her mother, Carol, had been a flight attendant. On her mother's side, the family tree reached back to the coal mines of northern England, providing Catherine with a rare balance between British tradition and the reality of the working class. When she was just 2 years old, her family moved to Amman, Jordan, where she attended an English-speaking nursery school and learned early on how to adapt to new cultures and environments. By the time they returned to England in 1986, Catherine was already showing signs of the independence and maturity that would later define her royal persona. The Middleton family's success was self-made. In 1987, Carol Middleton started a mail-order party supplies business called Party Pieces. What began as a small venture in a garden shed grew into a thriving, multi-million-pound company, providing Catherine and her siblings with elite educational opportunities. But more importantly, it taught Catherine the value of building something from the ground up. At Marlborough College, she wasn't just another student. She was a leader, the captain of the field hockey team, and a participant in the demanding Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award. She was determined, hardworking, and remarkably humble, even undergoing a minor surgery to remove a lump from her head without any drama or desire for attention. After finishing school, she chose to take a gap year to explore the world, studying art in Florence and volunteering for community projects in the trekking landscapes of Chile. She even worked as a deckhand in Southampton, never shying away from unglamorous physical labor. When she finally enrolled at the University of St Andrews in Scotland, she was a woman who knew the value of $1 and the importance of hard work, even taking a part-time job as a waitress to help with her expenses. It was there that she met Prince William. They began as close friends, sharing a love for art history and a quiet life away from the cameras. By 2002, their friendship had blossomed into a romance, but they kept a low profile, moving into a house with other friends to maintain a sense of normalcy. Their journey was not without its trials. In 2007, under the intense pressure of the media, they briefly broke up. Catherine handled the split with a quiet dignity that stunned the tabloids, refusing to lash out or play the victim. She grew even more confident during their months apart, and when they eventually rekindled their relationship, it was stronger than ever. She had survived the weighty Katie era of the press, with her grace intact, proving she had the temperament required for the world's most demanding stage. On April 29, 2011, Catherine married Prince William in a ceremony watched by billions. She became the Duchess of Cambridge, stepping into a life of duty and public service, yet she remained fundamentally herself. She balanced the expectations of the crown with the realities of motherhood, welcoming Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis into a home that felt more like a family than a royal court. She didn't just appear at events for the sake of tradition. She immersed herself in causes that mattered, from early childhood development to mental health. In 2018, she quietly donated 7 inches of her hair to a charity that creates wigs for children undergoing cancer treatment, a gesture done privately and without any desire for publicity. This was the Catherine way, a blend of modern empathy and traditional poise that was slowly reshaping the monarchy from the inside out. When the findings of the Queen's letter were finally brought to light, even those who had criticized the idea of Catherine taking a more prominent role found themselves admiring her. William, however, faced his own crucible. The knowledge that his grandmother had seen Catherine as the true future of the monarchy gnawed at his confidence. He loved her fiercely and admired her strength, but he couldn't help but question if he had been too cautious or too burdened by the expectations of his birth. He began to look at his wife with a new sense of awe and a certain fearful reverence. She had not asked for this responsibility, yet she seemed to wear the invisible weight of the crown better than anyone he had ever known. The question remained, was she ready to take on the burden the Queen had envisioned for her? When Catherine was finally asked if she was prepared to accept the responsibility the Queen had laid out in her final wish, her answer shocked both King Charles and Prince William. She did not say yes or no with the hunger of someone seeking power. Instead, she stated calmly and firmly that while many might desire to lead the monarchy, it was the desire of every wife and mother to keep peace within her family. She requested time to think, a response that proved she understood the delicate balance between the demands of the crown and the needs of the people she loved. Her answer made one thing certain: the Queen had made the right choice. She had chosen someone who could navigate the heavy demands of the throne without losing her humanity. The decision of Queen Elizabeth II to name Catherine as the future of the monarchy was a masterstroke of foresight. She knew that the House of Windsor could not survive as a museum piece frozen in the past. It needed a heart that beat in sync with the modern world, a leader who understood that true power comes from service and empathy rather than bloodlines alone. Catherine's response to the revelation showed a wisdom that surpassed her years, a recognition that the crown is not a prize to be won, but a sacrifice to be made. As the royal family stands on the edge of a new era, the world watches with bated breath, wondering if they will have the courage to follow the Queen's lead and embrace a future that looks like Catherine. The slow-burning fault line within the palace continues to build pressure, threatening to crack the foundations of an institution built over centuries. But in the quiet strength of the woman who never asked for a crown, there is a glimmer of hope. Whether the monarchy falls or rises again may depend entirely on whether they allow the commoner from Berkshire to lead them into the light. Catherine has shown that being royal isn't about the jewelry you wear or the palaces you inhabit. It's about the character you show when the world is watching and the kindness you offer when it isn't. She is the Queen the people already believe in, the one who might wear the crown better than anyone who came before her. The legacy of the Middleton family, from the coal mines to the mail-order business, has provided Catherine with a foundation that no royal tutor could ever replicate. She understands the world outside the palace gates because she came from it. She knows the value of hard work, the importance of family loyalty, and the necessity of resilience. These are the traits that Queen Elizabeth recognized as the only currency that would matter in the 21st century. The Queen's final wish was not an act of madness, but an act of survival, a desperate attempt to ensure that the institution she loved would not crumble under the weight of its own history. As King Charles pores over his history books and Prince William grapples with his fears, for the future Catherine remains the still point in a turning world. She meets the moment with a quiet acceptance, knowing that the world is moving forward whether the palace is ready or not. She has become the one nobody expected, but the one the crown needs most. She never chased the crown, and perhaps that is exactly why it is now chasing her. The monarchy's perfect image may be weaker than people want to admit, but in Catherine, they have found a strength that is real, grounded, and unbreakable. The debate over the Queen's letter will likely continue for years, a conversation that touches on the very nature of power, tradition, and change. But for those who have watched Catherine's journey, from the Royal Berkshire Hospital to the halls of Buckingham Palace, the answer is already clear. She has already proven her worth, not through a grand speech or a royal decree, but through 1,000 small acts of kindness and a lifetime of steady, unwavering service. She is the future the Queen imagined, a future built on heart and hope rather than just blood and law. In the end, the story of the Queen's lost letter is a reminder that the most important roles we play are often the ones we never asked for. Catherine's willingness to put her family's peace above her own ambition is the ultimate proof of her suitability for the throne. She understands that a crown without a family is just a piece of cold metal, and a monarchy without the love of the people is just a hollow shell. She has shown the world what it means to be a true leader, and in doing so, she has fulfilled the final wish of a queen who saw the truth long before anyone else. The House of Windsor stands at a crossroads, and the path they choose will determine their place in history. They can either cling to the old ways and risk being left behind, or they can embrace the change the Queen envisioned and rise again through the strength of a woman who represents the best of them all. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, is no longer just a supporting player in the royal drama. She is the lead, the one who holds the future of the crown in her hands. And as the world watches, holding its breath, one thing is certain: The legend of the Middleton girl who became the savior of the monarchy is only just beginning. The silence of that foggy London night has been replaced by a symphony of questions and possibilities. The Queen's message has been delivered, the secret has been told, and the decision now rests with those who remain. But whatever happens next, the image of Catherine, grounded, kind, and full of quiet strength, will remain the guiding light for a family and a nation searching for a way forward. She is the best of the bad, the finest of the heroes, and the woman who proved that you don't need a crown to be a queen. You just need the courage to be yourself. The end of the old monarchy is here, but in its place a new and more human era is waiting to be born, led by the woman the Queen trusted above all others. As the sun finally breaks through the London fog, illuminating the golden gates of the palace, the legacy of Elizabeth II lives on in the choice she made. She knew that the world would always need a symbol of hope, and she found that symbol in the most unlikely of places. Catherine is the bridge between the past and the future, the one who can carry the weight of tradition while embracing the necessity of change. Her story is a masterpiece of endurance and grace, a narrative of a woman who truly knows how to lead. And as the notes of history continue to play out, the memory of the Queen's final wish will forever be linked to the radiant face of the woman who saved the crown. The impact of this revelation will be felt for generations, a reminder that even the most powerful icons are human, driven by their own hopes and fears. For the future, Queen Elizabeth's decision to trust Catherine with the future of the monarchy was her final gift to her people, a sign that she never stopped looking out for them even in her final hours. And Catherine's response, rooted in the love of her family and the desire for peace, is the ultimate testament to her character. She is the queen we need, the one who understands that the greatest power of all is the power of a human heart. The silence is over, the truth is out, and the future of the British monarchy has never looked brighter. In the quiet moments of reflection that follow such a monumental shift, we are reminded that the most important stories are the ones that show us who we really are. Catherine's journey is our story, a story of hard work, resilience, and the courage to stand tall when the world is watching. She has shown us that greatness is not something you are born with, but something you earn through every trial and every victory. She is the Duke's greatest rival, the King's greatest hope, and the nation's greatest pride. And as she steps into the role she was destined for, we can all take comfort in knowing that the crown is in the best of hands. The trail she blazed from the coal mines to the palace is a path of honesty and integrity, a reminder that the most unforgettable legends are the ones who never needed to shout to be heard. Catherine has finally found her voice, and the world is listening with a new kind of respect. She is no longer a promise of an ideal. She is a reality of a woman, and that is far more compelling than any fairy tale could ever be. The sun is shining on the Princess of Wales, and she is finally home. She is a great woman, and her legacy is our joy. She is Catherine, and she is the best. Her story is our story, and it will live on forever. The end.